Seeing the picture, Suan remembers Dr. Tisak Mayang from his childhood. Just then, Dr. Hyan returns with some men, but Suan has already escaped. As she looks outside, she sees Suan hanging by the roof. Hyan and her team try to get Suan, but the latter uses his cat skills to land on the ground and run away. Following this, he drives to Mayang's house. Upon reaching there, he remembers visiting the place during his childhood after his mother's death and how he started living with Mayang. Suan also remembers how he used to spend all his time studying and solving complex equations at a very young age. One day, he uses the equations to derive the brain synchronization theory and shares his idea with Mayang. However, the doctor is only interested in making money off of the research. Hearing this, Suan gets annoyed and expresses his desire to move out of the place. Meanwhile, Jayan along with her junior reaches a temple looking for Namal, who is praying with the other devotees. Just then, the killer arrives there and drags Nabil to a secluded room. He takes out his gun and plans to silently finish off his target. Fortunately, the officer finds them and fights with the killer, allowing Namal to escape. An intense battle ensues, but sadly, the officer is eliminated. Meanwhile, Jayan sees Namal running away and catches him. Although scared, he takes her to the room where the two men were fighting. However, upon reaching, they only find the dead officer, with no signs of the killer. In the next scene, Jayan visits Namal in the interrogation room and demands answers while informing him about his mother's condition. Namal gets emotional and tells her that many innocent people have lost their lives because of him. He then recalls his visit to San Jose with Mayang, where he met a group of scientists, including Hyan and Eugen. Over time, Namal learns that in the name of scientific research, his group was doing something unethical. He tells Jayan that the doctors took homeless people from shelters with no family background and performed experiments on them. Their research caused many innocent people to lose their lives, and some lost their memories. Suddenly, one day, the government ordered an investigation, and the investors worried about their funds. The team decided to part ways but never betray one another, fearing exposure. Namal also explains Eugen's appointment as the director of their research center. Meanwhile, Dr. Mayang, along with the same stranger, approaches Suan in a wheelchair. He questions Suan about why he took so long to come and meet him. Mayang then introduces the stranger as his assistant, Yoon, but Suan is uninterested in it. Instead, he informs Mayang about his visit to the clinic earlier and asks about the picture. He also tells Mayang that many faces in the picture look familiar, and he suspects they relate to Doyoon's disappearance. After Yoon leaves the two men to talk, Mayang starts talking about their research program. He mentions that even after returning from the US, they still continued their research in secret. In fact, Suan helped with the research a lot, despite his knowledge. Turns out that Namal was hired as a spy, and his work was to track Suan's every move and provide all the lab reports to Mayang and his team. As the years went by, Namal grew fond of Suan and felt guilty for cheating on him. Later, he realized that Mayang and his team were behind all the incidents, including Kangmoo and Doyoon's death and Jae's suicide attempt. Namal regretted everything but stayed quiet, fearing his safety. However, when Suan asked for a fresh corpse, Namal purposefully led him to Kangmoo's body to help him. Back in the present, Mayang reveals that he is dying due to cancer. He also reveals how the brain sync can help transfer the brain consciousness to another person. Just then, Mayang mentions that he plans to transfer all his consciousness to Doyoon's brain. Suan is shocked hearing this, but as he tries to demand answers, Yoon injects something into him and renders him unconscious. In the next scene, Suan regains consciousness to find the house empty. Just then, Kangmoo appears and inquires about the next step. However, Suan becomes emotional and mentions that his son will cease to exist if Mayang completes his operation. He also regrets not listening to Jae and ruining his family. Meanwhile, Kangmoo wonders how Jae knew about Doyoon being alive, and hearing this, Suan plans to sync with his wife. However, he needs Namal's help, so he calls him from Mayang's landline. Namal answers Suan's call at the police station, and the latter asks him to monitor his sync with Jae, as it is his only chance to find Doyoon. Namal agrees, and they begin the sync in Suan's basement the next day. Namal turns the device on, and Suan sees Jae alone in a restaurant. As she isn't dead, Suan can see her memories, but he can just talk to her. He explains their current situation and how he is inside Jae's brain, trying to find clues to get to Doyoon. But Jae doesn't comprehend any of it. While Suan is trying to convince her, Lim interrupts them. The two men start to argue, and Suan pushes Lim to the ground, causing Jae to leave. Suan runs after her and opens the door but suddenly finds himself on a beach. There, he sees Jae get inside the water and goes after her. They find themselves in different locations as Suan continues explaining the brain sync to his wife. He urges Jae to try and remember something, but the latter is still clueless. Then, Suan mentions that the brain sync is accurate only if the recipient is dead. Hearing this, Jae contemplates taking her own life and stands on the edge of a building. She does so as it is the only way to find their son. Suan tries his best to save her, but it is too late. Back in the present, Suan suddenly wakes up and finds out that Jae has passed away. Following this, a distraught Suan asserts that they need to replicate Kangmu's sync procedure so that he can see Jae just like Kangmu. Namel has reservations as the process might cause Suan to have a cardiac arrest, but the latter is adamant on finding Doyoon. Reluctantly, Namel turns on the device, and Suan finds himself in the clinic, where Dr. Hyan informs Jae about their program. Suddenly, the scene shifts to Doyoon's funeral and back to the clinic, where Jae meets Hyan after the funeral. As Hyan leaves the room to meet a patient, Jae snoops around and finds some information about the locations of brain research. She quickly copies the files to a drive and enters a secret room, where she sees Doyoon on the other side of the glass panel. Suddenly, Hyan returns and Jae demands she open the door. She gets to the other side, where a bunch of kids are undergoing some treatments. Unfortunately, Jae doesn't find her son and returns disheartened. She reaches home and calls her husband, but he doesn't answer. Then, Jae plugs in the drive to her computer, but the doorbell rings before she can access the files. When she opens the door, she finds Yoon on the other side. He forcibly feeds her some pills and sets up the scene as if she took her own life. However, before she loses consciousness, she somehow throws the drive below a desk. Back in the present, Suan wakes up and quickly rushes to find the drive. After retrieving it, he plugs it into his computer, finds a company website called Turatopsis, and learns that Mayang plans to open up a new facility in Korea soon. He calls Jaehyun and informs her about their discovery. Jaehyun finds an international joint venture company with the same name, and Suan tells her about the potential location Mayang might be planning. Jaehyun inputs the specifications, and the search result zeroes in on one particular spot that looks like a bunker. However, she sees that the location has recently been shut down, but Suan thinks they need to search the place as they do not have much time. Elsewhere, Mayang arrives at his secret lab, where a bunch of scientists are doing their research. They talk about their mission which they plan to accomplish today. Meanwhile, Doyoon lies unconscious on a chair, hooked to different machines as the doctors prepare to sync Mayang's brain with him. In the meantime, Suan reaches the location with Namel and Jaehyun, and the officer hands over a gun to Namel for safety. The trio then enter the main building, where they find a bunch of dead people. Realizing that they are in the correct location, they run to the main area where the experiment is about to commence. Suan realizes that they need to stop the process before the transmission starts, but they have significantly less time to do so. Elsewhere, Yoon gets inside the control room to oversee the security, but the killer arrives and points a gun at him to take revenge for trying to get him killed. Yoon proposes a negotiation, but the latter doesn't agree. However, Yoon manages to knock the gun out of the killer's hand, and they get into a fight. Jaehyun suddenly arrives at the room, but the killer shoots Yoon and runs away. The officer goes after the killer and they start fighting in the storage unit. Fortunately, Jaehyun manages to eliminate the killer with the help of a large fan propeller. Meanwhile, Hyan sees Suan arrive at the room and rushes to speed up the process. But before she can attack Suan, Namel shoots her and ties everyone to a pillar. Following this, Suan asks Namel to help him sync with Doyoon before Mayang takes over. Namel is scared that his colleague might die, but the latter assures him that he won't, as his brain is different from the others. Left with no options, Namel begins the sync. Suan finds himself in a garden where he sees a younger version of Mayang and walks up to him. Mayang doesn't recognize Suan but informs him they are in his old school, where his dreams of being a brain scientist began. Suan asks him about his purpose for the visit, and the latter replies that he is waiting for his son. When Suan addresses him as father, the old man recognizes him and suddenly changes into his original state. Suan then asks for forgiveness for not having any emotions and also begs Mayang to set his son free. Although moved, the old man tells Suan that it is too late and shows him a door. He then reveals that everything will be over once he goes through the door with Doyoon. Suan tries stopping him, but the old man pushes him aside with his powers. Just then, Doyoon appears, and he proceeds to walk through the door with Mayang. Sensing the danger, Suan signals Namel to increase the simulation and the latter obliges. With this, the weather inside the simulation suddenly changes, and a storm ensues. Mayang tries his best to escape, but right then, Jae appears and tells him to stop. In no time, he finds himself standing near the bench and realizes that Suan is controlling the situation. Soon, Mayang struggles near the door and passes away. Meanwhile, Doyoon runs inside the school and Suan goes after him. As the little boy hides in a cupboard, the machine reaches its full power, and Namel tries to wake up Suan. Inside the vision, Doyoon gets scared and starts screaming when Suan tries getting to him. Seeing her husband in a hopeless state, Jae arrives there and teaches him a song she used to sing for Doyoon. Soon, the duo starts singing it together, and Doyoon gets out of the cupboard. Seeing him, Suan breaks down in tears and hugs him tightly. Back in the present, Suan wakes up to see all the machines malfunctioning. Namel turns off the main switch, but it doesn't work and instead locks Suan and his son inside. With no options left, Suan urges Namel to escape, while he covers Doyoon with his body. Soon, an explosion occurs, and Namel rushes to check on Suan. Fortunately, both the father-son duo are alive, and Suan gets emotional on meeting his son after long. Soon, the paramedics arrive, and Eugene starts searching for Mayang, only to find him dead. The cops take the evil doctors away, and Jaeyeon Sr. advises her to take some time off to rest. She meets Suan to ask about his son's condition and sends them off to a hospital. In the next scene, Suan and his son visit Jae at her grave to pay their respects. Suan sees his wife sitting on a bench, watching them from a distance, and joins her. Later, he receives a call from Jaeyeon, who informs him about Yoon running away. The call disconnects, and Suan finds Mayang standing in the dark as the screen goes blank. Subscribe for more video like this, turn on the notification. Thanks for watching. Have a nice day ahead.